Okay, there. We're gonna go ahead and improve the way the camera follows the aircraft when it's flying. So, like I said before, when I dumped the main camera inside of Prototype One, I told you don't update Prototype One. Don't go to overrides and don't make the main camera part of the prototype. Otherwise, stripping it back out will be a little bit complicated. But what I need you to do first is to basically select the camera and drag it out and drop it outside of, there we go. I've moved the camera out of the prototype. When I close the prototype now, if I go off and fly now, I'll have that same problem I had initially, which is the camera doesn't follow me now. I mean, there goes my aircraft, but the camera's not following me. So what we're going to do here is we're going to modify our script a little bit. So over in our plane pilot script, we're going to need a couple of public variables that we're going to set up. That way we can control the behavior. These three public variables are all going to be related to how we're going to handle our camera. This first public float is going to be called camera offset. And my second public float is going to be called camera tilt. My last public float here is going to be called camera look at multiplier. That's what we call it. Heck of a variable name there. Camera look at multiplier. Okay. Now that takes care of getting my public variables I'm going to need for my camera. And then we're going to, at the very end of our code, we're going to add, so after we handle making the vehicle move and handle rotating the vehicle based on the keyboard's input, and this, I want this to be inside the update method. So, if I get here at the end of this line of code here at the terminator, and if I hit the enter key a few times, I'll see that I haven't broken the curly brace here, and I'm still inside the update method. And here inside the update method, we are going to update the camera position. And this part of the script is going to control following the camera. So every frame we're going to need to figure out where we need to move the camera to based on where it was in the last frame. So we're going to be creating a new vector 3, and it's going to be called move cam 2. And it will be equal to transform dot position. Now that's going to be the position of the plane, and from that we're going to subtract transform dot forward multiplied times the camera offset plus vector 3 dot up multiplied by the camera tilt. I'll put the terminator on the end of that monster line of code right there. So vector 3 move cam 2 equal to transform dot position minus transform dot forward times camera offset plus vector 3 up times the camera tilt. And then on the next line down, we're going to create later. I'm going to clean this up. This is a bad place to put this. Called bias. And we're going to set that equal to 0.96. And we better put an F on there so that it knows that it is a float. The next line here, Now here we're going to start to affect the camera's transform. So we use the keyword camera dot main dot transform dot position. Now that's the camera's, it's the main camera's transform there. That's accessing the main camera's transform. And we're going to set that transform equal to camera dot main dot transform dot position. We're going to add to that, not add to that, we're actually going to multiply that by our bias. So we're going to multiply that by our bias, and we're going to add that to the move cam2, and that we will multiply by 1.0f minus the bias, and put a terminator on the end of the line, and all the blood should go away. But the blood has not gone away. Because it's move cam2 multiplied by 1.0f subtract the bias. So here's this line of code: camera.main.transform.position equals camera.main.transform.position times the bias plus the move cam2 times 1.0f subtract the bias. And then there's one more line of code. And this last line of code here will start off just like the previous one did. We're going to steal part of it. Camera.main.transform. Then we're going to use look at. And what we want to look at is transform.position. Now this is talking about the plane, the vehicle's transform. It's telling it to look at the transform that this script is attached to, plus transform.forward multiplied by our camera look at multiplier. Well, I'm glad I don't have to type that. And don't forget your terminator at the end. Now that should wrap the script up. This last line of code here. So camera.main.transform.look at transform.position plus transform.forward times camera look at multiplier. Make sure you save your script. Okay, why is it ringing? I've got the ringer turned off. It's not supposed to ring. Save my plane pilot, and then we really don't have to do much of anything in here except we have to set a few numbers. So I take that all back. We have to do a little something. We have to set our camera offset, our camera tilt, and our camera look at multiplier. And these are the numbers that I used. 4.8 30. Now if I press my play button here, play with those numbers a little bit here, but I'm speeding up a little bit. Camera's a little close. I'm going to have to adjust. Too close. Let me see here. Set the camera offset to 6. Let's see if that isn't a little bit better. Right. Now I'm gonna mess with the numbers a little bit here on my own, and I'll get back to you in class about what are going to be really good numbers that are going to work here for this. I did make some modifications in this earlier, and I can see I'm going to have to play with it a little bit, and I just don't want to do that here while it's recording. But everything appears to be working fairly well, and that'll wrap it up for this one.